I want to introduce you to Sarah Tobias, and she is from the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council. And she's going to give us a little bit of information about invasive species. All right, thanks everybody.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm Sarah. I work for the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council, and we're going to learn about invasive plants or animals today. Yeah, we'll get into it. Just as a bit of a quick introduction of who we are, just out of curiosity, how many of you have heard of the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council before? Okay, so some of you. For those of you that don't know, we are a regional nonprofit. We work in the Sea to Sky region, so as far south as Lions Bay to as far north as Darcy. That is a very big amount of terrain to cover. And we only have about 13 staff in the summer, so we work pretty hard to try to do what we can. We have a volunteer board of directors and about 1,000 society members. So with our staff, during the summer, we hire a lot of seasonal staff, and that includes a big field crew. So they are driving around in trucks. They're going up FSRs, finding patches of invasive plants and manually removing them. And then we also have an outreach team, which is the team that I work on. And we do a lot of different outreach events. So coming here to talk to you guys about invasive plants, we host community events to invite people to learn more about invasive plants and remove it themselves. We work with schools. We run our social media and website. So if any of you are interested in seeing memes about invasive species, there are a lot. I have made a lot of memes. So that's a bit of a quick intro. Our goal is to minimize the threat of invasive species that impact the environment, the economy, and human health in the Sea to Sky corridor. So that's a pretty big goal and a small team, but we work pretty hard to try to do everything we can. So a little bit about invasive species. What are invasive species? Does anybody know? Does anyone want to give a try at defining them? Sure.
Not natural to the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Does anyone have something to add?
They take over, right?
They do, yeah. So that is one thing that they tend to do, is they completely take over and cause monocultures and outcompete other species. So for our definition, invasive species, like you said, they are not native to the region, and they also lack natural control measures and have some sort of negative impact on human health, the economy, or the environment. So for a species to be invasive, it has to have two qualities. It has to be not from here, and it has to cause some type of harm. If it does both of those things, then we consider it invasive. And in terms of human health, environment, and the economy, so for human health, some invasive plants or animals can be toxic or poisonous, and that would harm us. In terms of environment, some plants, or essentially all invasive species, have some sort of negative impact on the environment, so they can form dense monocultures. They'll outcompete our native plants and lower biodiversity. And in terms of the economy, they can be really costly to remove and manage. So actually, some invasive plants can grow through concrete, or they can absolutely flood water intakes or just completely take over areas, and it's very hard to manage. So the picture on the left there, that's Japanese knotweed, and it's actually growing through concrete there. So yeah, it's quite a big issue. The second image there is giant hogweed. This plant is extremely toxic. If you touch it and then get exposed to sunlight, you can get third-degree burns. So that is a really high priority plant that we're trying to remove. And goldfish, surprisingly, are also invasive in our region. Actually, in 1 Mile Lake, there are quite a few goldfish, and it causes several problems, and they outcompete our native fish. So how did they get here? Does anyone have any ideas? Yes, that's a really big reason they got here. Yes, yeah, a lot of plants were brought here several hundred years ago before people knew how invasive things were, and sometimes they think a plant is pretty, and so they bring it here, and once it's planted and established, then they start to realize they can't get rid of it, and it's causing all these problems. Are there any other reasons people can think of? Yeah, go for it.
People, gentlemen or ladies that don't clean their boat off when they come out of a certain lake
Mm-hmm.
to transport it to another stream or lake.
Yes, that is a really big one. So sometimes unintentional introductions is another way invasive species get here.
It's called laziness.
Laziness, yes, we could also call it that. Both terms would work. So yeah, so for some intentional introductions, like we mentioned, people bring them here because they're pretty and they want them in their garden. And actually some invasive plants are still sold in the Sea to Sky and they're invasive and you can buy them in a shop. Sometimes people bring some invasive plants for medicine. Some do have medicinal qualities or for food. And there are a lot of unintentional introductions. So like we mentioned, water-based industry and outdoor activities. If you go out onto 1 Mile Lake or a different lake and you don't clean your gear, there are some very, very small parasitic invasive species that you can bring with you when you go somewhere else, or if you go for a hike and you go for a really muddy hike and you get seeds stuck all over your boots and you don't clean them and you go on a hike in a new area, you're bringing those seeds with you to a new place. Some other reasons is garden waste disposal, so improper disposal of invasive species. If you compost some invasive plants, they will actually survive the composting process. And when you put that compost somewhere else, they will grow again. And wood and soil transport is also a big one. This is probably less relevant to people living their day-to-day lives, but excavating companies, if they're taking soil from somewhere and going up an FSR or down an FSR, that's a big way invasive species spread. And wood, a lot of invasive insects will lay eggs or live in wood. And so if you purchase firewood somewhere and go on an 8-hour road trip and use that firewood elsewhere, you could be bringing little invasive insects with you. And that's a big way they get here is from other countries. If they bring wood shipments from one place to another, they might be bringing some little insects. And that's how we've had some introductions in the last few years. Yes, do you have a question?
Yes. We have a couple businesses
Mm-hmm.
that take what they call compost.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's rather tacky, but anyways, and people buy it and transport it elsewhere for like topsoil
Mm-hmm.
and their plants and that. Is there any restrictions or policing is the best
Yeah.
of those businesses and who and where they can sell to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for compost in particular, I'm not sure. We in the Sea to Sky, we don't recommend anybody to compost invasive plants. So kind of preventing invasive plants from getting into the compost system in the first place is probably a really good way to then prevent it from spreading further. But you're right, if someone did compost an invasive plant and it got into the soil or into the compost and it was spread, it could be an issue. Unfortunately, I actually don't know too much about like where it's come from. Is it a BC specific thing, or do you just mean people spreading compost from all around the country?
They gather it from around here and people come
Okay.
from elsewhere.
To take it?
I can help you with that one.
Sure. Do you have the
Sea
answer?
Sky Soil is one of the companies, and there's probably a few others. They actually have a steam process that ends up killing all of those little seeds and everything. So I know this for a fact.
Okay.
And not that I work,
Yeah.
but they do actually like sterilise.
Okay.
Soil. But we've had some given to us for Butterfly Garden, and even though it's been sterilised,
Yeah.
it still has nutrients to grow things. So.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know. Yeah, our general recommendation is to not compost invasive plants, but that's really good to know that everything does get sterilized.
But you say not to do that. Is there a rule that says you're not supposed to go through red lights?
Yes, you're right. So we can't police every single person. As helpful as it would be to prevent invasives from getting into the compost, we can't do that, but we try our best by coming to events like this and letting people know, because the more people that know, the less it'll happen. Okay. So I have a few kind of tricky questions for you guys, just to see if you know.
Speak up. I can't hear you over the children.
Okay, I have some questions for you guys. So the first one is, are all non-native plants invasive?
I always say no. No.
Okay, the general consensus is no. You say yes. Why do you say yes?
Someone at some time brought them here.
That is true. But just because they brought them here, are they causing harm?
Yeah. with the way the trees are growing.
That's true. So actually, we would say not all non-native plants are invasive, although you're right that a lot of them would cause problems. So some species are not native, but they don't have any problems, and so we call those exotic species. So an example is tomatoes. Tomatoes are not from BC, but they grow here. They provide delicious fruit, and they don't actually cause any ecological harm in our environment. Another example is tulips. They're not from here, but they're beautiful, and they don't spread crazy. So those two are exotic species. Yeah, exotic species. Yeah. Next question. Are all weedy plants invasive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hands up who says no. One person says no. How many people say yes, that all weedy plants are invasive? Yes. So it's actually a bit of a trick question. I guess it depends how you define weedy. But for me, I would consider a plant like horsetail weedy because it grows where you don't want it to. It's kind of a problem. It's hard to get rid of. But horsetail is actually native to here. And so because of that, not all weedy plants are invasive because some native species can also be weedy. But because they're native, they're not invasive. Okay. Are all native plants good? I'll give you guys a second to think.
Not if they're out of the area.
Okay. Well, if they're out of, what do you mean by out of the area?
Well, there's water lilies that are from here, that if they're actually in Ontario, they're invasive species and vice versa.
That's true. But if water lilies are here and they're native here,
Yeah.
are all of them good? Yeah, native is a term that can be taken in different places.
Exactly. Native to Canada or native to here?
Yeah, so we'll say native to BC. Are native plants to this area good? Who here says yes? Raise your hand. Okay, who thinks no? Yeah, okay, we have a few people saying no. So yeah, not necessarily. It depends how you define good. All native plants will have some sort of role in our ecosystem, but some native plants are weedy and gardeners don't like them. Other plants have spikes and they can hurt you. So a couple examples is fireweed. Weed is in the name. It can be very weedy and hard to get rid of, and it grows everywhere. And devil's club, again, it serves a great purpose in our environment, but it's also really spiky, and so it can harm us. And so this definition of good depends on how you want to define it. Every plant can have some good to it, and every plant can have some bad to it. Just because it's native, it doesn't automatically mean it's good. And along the same lines, are all invasive plants bad? Who says yes? Nobody? Who thinks no, not all invasive plants are bad? All right, you guys are correct. Not necessarily. So invasive plants are not inherently bad. A lot of them are just in the wrong place. So something that I want all of you guys to take away is all plants are native to somewhere. So like you said, the water lilies are native to here, but they're not native to Ontario. And just like in this picture, this is Scotch broom. I don't know if you can guess from the name, but it's from Scotland. And so it's invasive here. It's a really big problem. The seeds are really hard to get rid of. It grows like wildfire. It's a huge nuisance here. But in Scotland, it's a native species and it's beautiful. I have personally never been to Scotland, but I know a few people who have, and they've been there and they've said the Scotch broom there is amazing and it's beautiful. And so just because it's a bad species here in BC, it still has value and it can be good somewhere else. And so, yeah, we don't need to vilify invasive plants, despite them being a big problem here. Okay, after that quick introduction, I wanted to share a little bit about Pemberton's worst weeds. So this is a program that we've developed to kind of share a little bit about the priority species here in Pemberton. Specifically because Pemberton has a lot of farmland. Invasive species can be a big problem for farmers. They can cause crop losses, increase maintenance costs, reduce product quality and quantity. It can cause human or animal health concerns, and it can lower your land value. So we put this together as species that have a high impact in Pemberton with also an emphasis on maybe people who have farmland who grow things. And yeah, one thing I do want to emphasize, we'll go through all the species. They are not common, so if you don't recognize them or if you haven't seen them, that's okay. But they have really big impacts. So if you do happen to see one, please let us know. And yeah, so our goal is to eradicate all 5 of these species from Pemberton. Their populations are pretty small. There's not that many here, but keep an eye out. And I actually have a few of these. I could pass them around if people want to have closer looks. They're just little, I'll pass one around. Maybe, do you mind sending one down there? And then could you send one down to the end of your table? Okay, we will go through the 5 worst weeds. So the first one is Himalayan blackberry. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this plant. It has delicious black berries. It's very common in Squamish, but there's not so much in Whistler and Pemberton, thankfully. Yeah, it's relatively easy to identify. It has these big egg-shaped leaves, thick stems with red or green prickles, and the most obvious thing is it produces delicious blackberries. But yeah, it can be really challenging to remove. So this plant has very, very deep, a very extended root system with big root balls. And it also likes to grow near water, which is a big problem because it completely takes over stream banks, which means people cannot access the water to do recreation, but animals also then can't go to the water to drink. So a lot of people have come to me and said, oh, but blackberries provide food to the animals. Well, one thing I would say is a lot of animals don't realize that blackberries are edible because they didn't evolve with the Himalayan blackberries being here. And also, even if they can eat, they no longer have access to water because it's completely taken over like the stream banks and access to water. Yeah, something interesting to know is we do have several different blackberry species in our region. So we actually have one native species. It's called trailing blackberry. But the rest of the blackberry species are invasive. Trailing blackberry grows generally quite low to the ground and it's really small. So any blackberry plant that you see that's hip height or even higher, it's probably invasive. Okay, wild parsnip. So yeah, big warning at the top. Please do not touch this plant. Wild parsnip has a really toxic sap. So if you do end up touching it and you get exposed to sunlight, the sap can cause burns on your skin. But thankfully, on the 1+ side, it only happens if you get exposed to sunlight. So if you do touch a plant like this, if you cover your skin and get it washed off immediately, you'll probably be able to avoid as much of the burning as possible. So what does it look like? It has these umbrella-like yellow flowers, and it can actually grow up to 2 meters tall. So relatively tall plant. Yeah, and the impact, so the main impact is, of course, it's a big human health concern. We don't want people touching this plant at all, but it can also reduce available forage for livestock, and it does outcompete our native species.
Have you really seen those plants?
So I personally have not, because most of my work is with plants that the community can work together to remove. It's not very common in Pemberton itself, but we do work on it in the Mount Currie area. They do have quite a few lookalikes, so we can talk about that in a bit.
Very similar.
Yeah, so it is part of the carrot family, and most carrot family plants have that sort of flowering, the flowers look like that. I don't know off the top of my head what the most similar ones would be, but I can definitely look that up and get you the answers. And yeah, actually, a really fun fact, it's called wild parsnip, and the roots are actually edible because it is kind of related to the actual parsnip that you buy at the grocery store. That being said, please do not find this plant and dig it up just to eat it because it is still a harmful hazard to you. Okay, the next one is common bug loss. Yeah, so it is very pretty. It has these bright blue to purple flowers with a distinctive kind of white throat in the middle, and it has very fleshy, succulent leaves with stiff hairs. It's not a super tall plant. It grows about 80 centimeters tall max. And yeah, its impacts, it can reduce biodiversity as it outcompetes native plants. It can actually cause illness to humans and livestock if it's ingested, and ultimately it reduces crop yield. Once again, this plant is pretty uncommon. you're not super likely to see it, but if you do, please take a picture. The next one, Scotch broom. This plant is very, very common in Squamish, and then once you get north of Squamish, you don't see it as much, and that's because we do a lot of work to prevent it from establishing here. So what does it look like? It has these very distinct pea-like yellow flowers and rigid woody stems. Sometimes people just call it broom, and it's very, very common on Vancouver Island as well. So if any of you have gone to Vancouver Island, especially kind of late spring, early summer, you'll probably see the highways covered with these bright yellow flowers. That's Scotch broom. It's quite a big concern because its stems are very resinous and oily, and so it can actually increase the wildfire fuel load, which is a big concern here because summer is fire season and Scotch broom can really negatively impact how much fires grow and spread. And yeah, they produce really dense monocultures that can reduce our sight lines. I'm sure if you've seen it on the highway, it grows really big and tall and you can't really see past it. And it is quite a nuisance to remove. So one plant can produce thousands and thousands of seeds, and each seed can survive in the soil for up to 60 years. So even if you went and pulled out every single existing Scotch broom right now, you would have to keep going back for the next 60 years to make sure none return. And if you let one slip and it goes to flower and produce the seeds, that's another 60 years you have to wait. Yeah. It is not good. Okay, and then we've left the worst one for last, Japanese knotweed. Maybe some of you have heard of this plant. It is very invasive and very difficult to remove. So what does it look like? It has these small white flower clusters kind of in the middle, and it has these heart-shaped leaves, and its stems kind of look like bamboo. And yeah, it has a lot of negative impacts. Like I mentioned earlier, it can grow through concrete. So it can damage our infrastructure, damage our buildings, and it also causes erosion because its roots they're not very hairy. And so when it grows near water, which is where it likes to grow, it doesn't hold onto the soil very well. And so it causes quite a bit of erosion. This plant is very, very hard to remove. So actually, as much as 0.7 of a gram of knotweed, if you leave it there and don't remove it, it can grow back into a new plant. So it makes it very difficult to remove because you have to be incredibly thorough. And actually, we do not recommend people pulling out knotweed because the chances are you're just going to spread it more. Yeah, thankfully, again, there's not much of it in Pemberton. All of the plants I just went over are very uncommon, so you're not going to see it every day. But again, if you do, please take a photo and report the sighting to us. If you don't know how to reach us, you can literally just Google invasive species, sea to sky invasive species Pemberton, and we will probably be one of the first links. Otherwise, I will share my contact information at the end. Yeah, or you can go to our website, ssisc.ca/report, and it's really easy. There's all the instructions to upload your picture and describe what you saw. So now we're gonna play a little game called From Here or From Away. So how do you play this game? Take a look at the image and guess whether it is a native species from here or if it's non-native from away. So I'll give everybody a few seconds to think, and then I will ask people to share. And some of these pictures I have shown already, so if you've been paying attention, it's a bit of a spoiler. Yeah, do you have a guess?
The ladies who said it was fireweed.
It is fireweed. Is it from here or from away? It's from here. You are right. So this is fireweed, and it's a native species. It's from here. Okay, the next one. Have you seen this plant before? It's all over the place. You think it's not from here?
Somebody brought it here years ago. My yard is full of it.
So you're right. It is not from here. Does anybody know what it's called? It is hawkweed. So this is orange hawkweed. Nice work. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can tell from this picture on the right side of that giant monoculture of hawkweed.
Get rid of it. Our yard is just covered
Yeah, this one's really tricky. It grows through its roots and it has stolons, so it kind of spreads vegetatively, and the roots go and another one comes up, and the roots go and another one comes up. So you'd have to be very delicate to actually remove every single root system. If you just pull the plant and leave the roots, it'll keep coming back. Yeah, you'd have to do it like repeatedly to really kill it. Okay.
You know what?
Motivator.
Yes, what's your question? Yes.
Years and years back, I was in the Farmers Institute and we had all this education about, and we have been told that the farmers themselves is the tractors driving maybe along the highway, the road or going out the field.
Yeah.
And if they don't wash when they do something, their tires,
Yes.
then that can be spread maybe to another farm, because we had it, and I know lots of farmers here. Oh, actually, you have it right on your field. Yeah. So that can be, and you can hardly get rid of it.
You're right. Yeah. So just like you said, one of the ways it spreads is exactly like you said, through the tires of tractors or cars. Exactly. Yeah, I'm based in Whistler and I see it spreading all the way up the valley trails and things like that as it just keeps going up. So it is really tricky to remove. Thankfully, this plant is not a super high priority for us. It is all over the place, but we're not too concerned about its spread in the valley, as its impact is relatively less than some of other higher priority species. Okay, what about this one? Have you guys seen this plant before?
Wait, periwinkle.
It's not periwinkle, but that's another invasive species.
It's called something with silver.
Yeah, it that is one of the names for it.
It's in the flower basket. You see it sometimes in the flower
You are
basket.
exactly right. Okay, does anyone want to take a guess? Is it from here or from away? From away? Yes, you guys are exactly right. This plant is called yellow lamium, but sometimes it's silver variegated yellow lamium, or it's called yellow archangel. And yes, it is invasive. Again, from this picture, it is completely taken over. It forms these really dense monocultures, and just like orange hawkweed, it grows through its roots. And so it's very hard to remove because you have to get every single little root piece out or it will grow back. Okay, we have a couple more. What about this one? This one might be a little tricky. It does look yummy. It is blackberry. Do you know what kind of blackberry it is? Not thimbleberry, the angry kind. So actually this is the happy kind of blackberry. Does anyone want to guess if it's from here or from away? It is the one from here. Yes. You're exactly right. Yeah, so this is trailing blackberry. It's our one native blackberry. So yeah, that's super cool. You can have a look at the picture. It's hard to tell with pictures. It's easier in person, but you're right. The leaves are actually quite a bit smaller. And if you see trailing blackberry, I've always seen it kind of in the forest. So if you're on a hike and you're actually in the forest, you're more likely to see trailing blackberry. And if you're in a parking lot on the side of the road and you see blackberry, it's probably the invasive Himalayan blackberry. But yeah, it's good to know. There's some blackberries that have a couple more. What about this one? This plant is incredibly tall. Hogweed, yes, that's what it is. Does anyone know if it's from here or from away? It's from away. Yes, you guys are exactly right. So this is giant hogweed. This one is one of the plants that is extremely toxic. So if you touch it and then if the sap gets on your skin and you get exposed to sunlight, it can cause your skin a lot of harm. Thankfully, it's rare. I have actually never seen giant hogweed, so I'm very grateful for that. There is a look-alike to it. It's called cow parsnip, which a lot of you might have seen. Is that what you're thinking of? So cow parsnip, it can also grow relatively big, but it probably grows to like chest height or lower. Giant hogweed will be twice your size, or taller than you. So if you see a plant that's very, very tall, that's probably giant hogweed. And if it's more normal sized, it's cow parsnip. Both plants actually have a sap that can harm you. They both can cause photodermatitis. So even with our native cow parsnip, I would not recommend touching it. But cow parsnip is a lot has a much smaller impact of harm on your skin. Giant hogweeds, don't touch it ever, please. Okay, and this is our very last one to guess from here or from away. I actually heard someone say this plant's name earlier. Close guess. Thimbleberry. That's the name. And is it from here or from away? From here, yes, you guys are right. So this is our native thimbleberry. It's actually my favorite berry to eat. It is so sweet and delicious. And yeah, I love it. It's from here. It's great. Okay, then I wanted to share a little bit about the work that we have done specifically in Pemberton, because we do work all over the region, but we do spend some time here specifically. So I asked our field manager to share a little bit about the work that she's done. And so, yeah, we have done a lot of work trying to eradicate Scotch broom from Pemberton. Like I mentioned, the seeds can stay viable in the soil for over 60 years. So we do have to keep coming back. And even though there's not really any active sites of Scotch broom anymore, there's still a chance that it will grow back in the next 50 plus years. So thankfully, we have done a lot of work and a lot of sites have gone dormant. So that just means we've returned, we don't see any Scotch broom, we leave, then we come back the next year and do it over and over again. And with this plant in particular, community reports have been really helpful. Like I mentioned, we're a small team. As much as we would like to, we cannot spend all day driving around to monitor every single area. So we do rely on the public and everybody else's eyes. And if they see a plant and they report it to us, it really helps us to manage them and remove them. And then another example, I know you guys were asking about wild parsnip. So there was quite a big population of it in Mount Currie. So we have been working with the Lilwat Nation since 2019 to help manage the wild parsnip growing on their territory. In 2022, we actually helped them apply for some funding that would allow us to help treat the wild parsnip on their property. And so in 2022, we observed 1,380 meters squared of wild parsnip. That's quite a lot. And in the last 3 years, we have gone to observe and treat this parsnip. And in 2025, this year, we only observed 150 meters squared. So we have made a lot of progress. Yeah, especially with this plant being such a high priority plant, it is fantastic to see such a decline in the infestation. And so, yeah, we are continuing to work with the Lilwat Nation, and we'll continue with the goal of completely eradicating this plant off their territory. And then a little bit about what you guys can do. So I've talked a bit about what we have done in the Sea to Sky region, but we also rely on the public to help us prevent their spread. So here's a few things you can do. The first one seems obvious, but sometimes can be tricky. Don't purchase invasive species. Like I mentioned, actually, a lot of plant stores still sell invasive species. We are working to get more laws in place to prevent the sale of them, but unfortunately, it's a slow process. And so you can still buy and plant sellers can still sell invasive plants. It's not illegal. But because of that, we do ask the public to then keep an eye out for what they're buying and make sure that they're not purchasing invasive species. And part of the way that you learn about them is to come to talks like this, or you can visit our website or ask me any questions. Yeah, the second point is to keep your gear clean. Like we talked about, when people bring boats into the water and leave, or if they go for a hike and get their shoes muddy, things like that can actually be a spread for invasive species. So before you go out on a hike, give me 1 second, before you go out on a hike and after you leave, make sure that you clean all the dirt and pieces off. And with any watercrafts, make sure you drain your things and dry them completely. What was your question? Yes. The risk with inflatable boats would definitely be lower, but there are some invasive kind of parasites. And so one of them is called whirling disease, and there's actually no known cure, and it affects all like salmonoid fish. And so it can survive in anything that holds water. So if you have a PFD that you don't fully dry, or waders, or like a bucket or something like that, and you don't dry it and you bring it somewhere else, if those parasites come with you and they survive and they get introduced to a new lake, it risks killing up to 90% of the salmonoid fish in that new lake. Yeah, so whirling disease is in BC, thankfully not in the Sea to Sky, but I think they closed Emerald Lake in BC. I actually don't know where it is. Not too close to us, but still in BC. They had to close the lake because they detected this parasite in it and they didn't want people to go in and start spreading the parasite to other places. You're right, bigger boats have that bigger risk of carrying more water, but just to be safe, it's better to just dry everything completely. Yeah, I mean, if you see clear plant parts on your paddleboard, wipe it off. But generally, if it fully dries, then any parasites or animals on it should die. You can also do a check. There are zebra and quagga mussels. Thankfully, again, we don't have those in the Sea to Sky, but they are a big issue in other places. And so they're these tiny little mussels. They're much smaller than our native mussels. They're like this big. Probably unlikely that they'd hitch a ride on your paddleboard, but you can still keep a look for it and brush it off and don't bring it with you. Yeah, the next one, we did talk about this already. Do not compost invasive plants. We don't recommend it here in the Sea to Sky just to reduce any risk of seeds being spread to other places. And please report any invasive species that you see. So here's a few of our programs. Clean, Drain, Dry, that's the one we just talked about. So it's easy to remember. Clean your gear, drain all water out of it, and let it dry completely before going somewhere new. Play, Clean, Go. This one is for hiking, trail running, all types of adventures. So play, have your fun, go for your walk, and then clean your gear off, and then you're free to go home. Yes?
So a person has waders,
Mm-hmm.
and believe this or not, if they're folded up, just taken off and folded up and put in carryall, the next week or two, when you open that carry and go to put your waders on, they're still damp.
Yeah.
Is that?
Would that cause a risk?
Yeah. Will they carry on in that?
Yeah.
Or should they actually go home, be hung up, and let dry?
That's a good question. Out of caution, I would always recommend letting something fully dry. But you're right that if something is left there for 2 weeks, are things really going to survive? Maybe not as much. To be honest, I'm not an expert in that little parasite and what it can survive through. So
as a human being, I'm really, really lazy.
Yeah, that's super fair. I can relate to that too. It can be a little bit of a pain to fully dry things. I would say if you are planning to take your waders and drive 6 hours to another lake and do it there, like bring it from one lake to another, it's probably safer to let it fully dry. But if you're going to 1 Mile Lake and then you go home for a week and then you come back to 1 Mile Lake and you're just returning to the same lake, the chances are you're not going to introduce anything new if it's been to the same place.
1 Mile Lake.
It's probably, I would say it's definitely safer to let things fully dry. One other thing you could try is to rinse things off. If there's a hose near the lake, you can fully rinse your thing off to, again, minimize the risk of any parasites coming with you. Yeah.
Like I said, that sounds like a lot of work.
That's very fair.
Just keep them in the sun. I mean, I deal with like a dozen waders when we do the streamkeeper stuff, and we never fold them up before they're 100% dry. It just makes sense.
It's probably better for the quality of your gear too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Was there another question? Yes.
I've seen them for years. Those white flowers that are flat and they look like lace, and I think that part of the name is something lace.
Oh, Queen Anne's lace.
Down on the west coast of the U.S. one time, like, but there was one of those plants there.
Ooh.
And I didn't know. I'm glad I didn't touch it. But
Yeah.
later that it was very poisonous.
Yes, so that was probably giant hogweed, the one we had talked about. So I'm really glad you didn't touch it, because yeah, that would have been. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So our Next little program is buy local, burn local. That's for firewood. As I said earlier, we recommend that if you're going to have a fire, I know there's a fire ban right now, but in the future, if you're going to have a fire, to buy the wood locally to where you're going to burn it, because you could risk bringing invasive insect seeds, invasive insect eggs, or the insects themselves from one place to another. And especially if you bring the wood with you and then you end up not using it because you bought too much wood and you leave it there, then if you did bring those eggs, they could establish. Yeah, so don't move firewood. And then our other,
Another camper will
Yeah.
pick that wood up and take it with them.
yeah,
That came 100 miles to that, because I've seen that happen.
yes, it definitely does happen. And so we try to reduce that risk. And the next one is don't let it loose. That is for any pets that could be invasive. So the goldfish in 1 Mile Lake, of course, we have no exact confirmation of how it got there, but there is probably a big chance that someone let their pet goldfish out in the lake, and now if there were 2 goldfish, they have reproduced, and now we have 1,000 goldfish in the lake. So please don't release your pets. Always rehome them, find a good place for them to live. Oh, hello. Yeah, and then like I mentioned, please report any invasive species that you find. And we also, there's an app called iNaturalist. Has any of you heard of it? You've heard of
I
it.
use it from Australia. I have no idea what any plant is.
Yeah.
So I use it all the time. Sometimes it doesn't pick up what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but
It's pretty good.
It's
Yeah.
pretty good. And it's not just plants,
It's all
insects,
things.
It's birds,
Yeah.
it's everything.
It's fantastic. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, iNaturalist is a free app web page that you can access, and it's kind of a crowdsourced community science platform. So what you can do is you can take a picture on your phone or upload something onto your computer of anything you like, any animal, any plant, and it will give you a best guess of what they think this plant is. And you can also upload it onto their database, and it shares that data with a ton of scientists so that people can learn from your observation. So people use this for native species to track populations of beetles or track populations of birds or whatever. We actually use iNaturalist to track populations of invasive species. So if someone takes a picture of Scotch broom growing in Mount Currie, we can find that data sighting, like the GPS and the photo of it, and then we can say, oh no, someone has seen Scotch broom in Mount Currie, let's go deal with it. So if you want to know more about what plants are, iNaturalist is great because it'll kind of guess what it is, and then other people can actually look at your picture and say, yes, your guess is correct, that is Scotch broom. Or they say, oh no, you were mistaken, it looks like Scotch broom, but it's actually this other plant. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more, iNaturalist is fantastic. And then another thing you guys can do is you can get involved. We actually have a volunteer opportunity next Monday, so September 15th, 6 days from now. If anybody is interested, we run a volunteer program called Banish Burdock. Most of the work is done in Whistler, where we get people to adopt a section of the Valley Trail, and they vow to keep that Valley Trail free of invasive burdock for the entire summer. But we were like, let's see if the folks in Pemberton want to try it out. So we are having an event as a bit of just to prepare you guys for what to expect. It is a lot of hands-on work. It's a lot of digging. And burdock has these really long carrot-like taproots. So it's like digging out a big carrot in gravelly soil. So it's not very fun, but it is very rewarding. So if anybody is interested, everyone is welcome. We'll give you all the instructions you need to know. And yeah, that's our event. We'll be here next Monday. And actually, yeah, I haven't talked about burdock today yet. Do you guys know common burdock? Yeah. It's such a nuisance. So burdock is, yes, it has these really sticky seed pods, kind of like that picture I put in the top corner there. And so if you brush by it, or if your pet, your dog brushes by it, the fur and the clothing will just get completely covered in these burrs. It's very hard to remove. It's very sticky. And actually, the person who invented Velcro was inspired by burdock, fun fact, because the mechanism works so well to stick onto things.
And it's a nightmare in the horses' manes and tails.
Yes, I can imagine that would be difficult.
It's very hard to keep the burdock out.
Yes, it's very invasive.
Got her out one day cutting it with honey glue.
Yeah.
And we
So,
dug it, and the one area that I dug out,
mhm.
I actually left some of it because it's huge, isn't it? It's underground.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
very
poured,
big.
A small amount of diesel
Okay.
into the hole where it was. Hasn't grown this year.
That's great. Yeah, we haven't tried things with diesel, but I'm glad to know that's
well, I'm
worked.
way out there, so I can do it without anybody knowing it. I only did it once.
Well, I guess it works. Yeah, we recommend to dig it out, but different ways will work.
But it,
Yes.
but it makes a lot of noise when it starts up.
Yes. Yes, so burdock is invasive. It's actually, I think there's a couple different varieties of burdock. I believe some of it's from Europe, but actually it also grows in Japan and people eat it in Japanese cuisine. So the burdock root is edible and it's delicious. Yes, they also do make a drink, dandelion and burdock. Yeah, I would not recommend eating the roots that you find on the side of the road. I have tried that. It is not delicious. But they are edible if you were curious. Burdock salad. Yeah. Yeah, so it can be really tasty. If you were going to harvest burdock, you'd probably want to find a less disturbed area. Okay. And then another thing you guys can do, I wanted to share some creative ways people have used invasive species. So like I said, going back to the start, not all invasive plants are bad and all plants can have some value. And so, yeah, some people have done English ivy basket weaving. It's actually quite popular. We don't have much ivy in Pemberton, which is good because ivy is quite invasive and hard to get rid of. But if you ever go down to Squamish or Lions Bay for a day, there is a ton of ivy there and you can do basket weaving. So that's very cool. Another thing people have done is they've made invasive plant bookmarks. Just because they're invasive doesn't mean they're not pretty. A lot of invasive plants are beautiful. And so you can make bookmarks. Some people, for certain plants, they've even made paper out of them. I've been looking at how to do that, but you can only do it with plants that have really woody stems. So not all plants will work for that, but almost all plants will work to make a bookmark. And yeah, some plants are edible. So for example, blackberries, you can make a delicious blackberry ice cream. So yeah, that's actually something I have been trying to focus on this year, is finding alternative uses or innovative uses for invasive plants. They're here. It's hard for us to get rid of them, but maybe we can find some positive from them being here. And so these are just a few ideas to inspire you and kind of share that it's not all bad. We can do some good things. And now on to the fun part. Wanted to do a show and tell. Have you guys heard of an American bullfrog before? Well, you'll be pleased to meet Jeremiah. This is our bullfrog. Maybe I will pass it around for people to look at. But yeah, so this is an American bullfrog. This is an invasive species. Thankfully, we do not have bullfrogs in the sea to sky. We don't know of any that are here. It is very big, but they are in BC. So this particular frog was found in the Kootenays. Some of our friends at other invasive species councils caught it for us. But bullfrogs are on Vancouver Island. They're in the Lower Mainland in the Fraser Valley. So they are nearby, and we do not want them here because they will eat anything that fits into their mouths, including like rodents and small birds and other frogs. No, this guy has been in a jar for like many years, so it's dead. Yes, what's your question?
Was he a heavy drinker?
He could have been. I don't know. Does anyone want to get a closer look? I can. Yeah, maybe I will leave it here and people can look at it afterwards. Yes, Jeremiah.
It's just wonderful you called it Jeremiah's book. You do that song.
I do know the song, and yeah, one of our assistants from many years ago named it Jeremiah. But yeah, he is the star of our show. Anytime we go to an event, we have to bring Jeremiah. To be honest, he's the reason most people come to our booth and talk to us, is because they want to look at the frog. Yes, go on.
How old? Has anybody given an approximate? Is that young, middle?
I would say it's an adult. It's pretty big. I believe they can get a little bigger than this, but that's a pretty big frog already.
I've seen bullfrogs. I'm from Ontario.
Okay.
originally,
Yeah.
And we used to have bullfrogs in Mrs. Turnbull's pond in the
Yeah.
back, and they were that size.
Yeah. Yeah, so they can be really big. Yeah, so bullfrogs are actually native to the east coast of Canada. I'm not sure about Ontario, but along the coast,
We
they
had lots.
they might be native there. I'm not sure, but they are definitely invasive here on the west coast. They are generally nocturnal, so you're not going to see them during the day. I wish I brought the little noise. I did not bring the button for what Jeremiah sounds like, but it's called a bullfrog because their call kind of sounds a bit like a cow. So if you hear something that sounds like a cow at night, feel free to record it and send it to us because we want to be on top of managing this species as much as possible if it were to be introduced. Yeah.
A girlfriend for Jeremiah.
I think that would make Jeremiah really happy. This one we bring, it's more for kids, but adults also love him. This is Gary the goldfish. And it's a bit of a demonstration of how big goldfish can get, because often when we see goldfish, we think of the teeny little guys that live in a bowl, but they actually can grow. They grow to the size of the container you put them in. So if you put them in a lake, they can grow this big or actually even bigger. Yeah, this is Gary. And then the last thing I brought, maybe I should have saved Jeremiah for last because now we're just looking at plants. Does anybody remember this plant? It's kind of wilted since I pulled it this morning. It's not ivy, but we talked about it earlier. I'll pass it around. It's the one with the silver on the leaves. Do you remember it? You guys can have a look. Yes, they put it in.
You see that in plants and stuff.
Yeah. It doesn't sting. Yeah. Here, I'll take it back. Yeah, so something cool about this plant is it's part of the mint family. It's not edible, don't eat it, but it is part of the mint family, and plants in the mint family have square stems. So if you roll, do you want to feel it again? Here, I'll pass it down. If you roll it between your fingers, it feels kind of square. Mint. Mint, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of one other way to help identify it. Obviously, all mint plants would have this. But yeah, yellow lamium has those green and white leaves. Yeah. Oh, did you have a question?
Just for your information, in case you don't know it.
Yes.
There is another size of bullfrogs.
Okay.
They're at least half again as big.
Half
They
as
live
big.
all over the lower mouth of the Fraser.
Okay.
They got away from a food raising
Yeah,
program
the farm.
in Chilliwack
Yeah.
in the early days in the major flood,
Yeah.
and they are all over.
Yeah. So
My dad used to bring them home for myself and my sister.
to eat them?
They weighed like 6 to 9 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
They would take and jump if they were forced to, but they sure knocked the wind out of them.
Wow. Yeah. So like you said, actually, people used to farm bullfrogs for their legs because they had big meaty legs, and so.
All of the sloughs down on the mouth of the Fraser.
Yes. Did you have a question?
Yes, is electric lettuce a native?
Oh. I've never heard of electric lettuce, actually. You'll maybe have to.
Marijuana.
Oh. I've never heard that term before. No, I would not. I don't think that's considered invasive. Is it not quite difficult to grow? That was my understanding of it.
Ask about
Okay, well that's asking for a friend. Yeah, I don't know. We don't do any work with marijuana, so I would
No, I
assume.
just wondered if does it grow naturally around here?
I don't think it's from here.
A lot of people spend a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be. Well, thankfully, yeah, it's. I don't believe it's invasive here, so if you want to grow it, you're not going to harm the environment.
No, I
Feel
don't.
free to do as you like. Yeah. So that was kind of all that I had. You guys have already asked me a lot of questions, but if anyone has more.
We have purslane in our garden.
Mm-hmm.
It's just taken over. Like we had to put tarps down.
Yeah.
Lots of gardens in the valley have it. I've talked to lots of ladies. It'll grow up through it. There's a little lip,
Yeah.
it'll grow huge, and it just grows like that and suffocates everything. I hate it.
Yeah.
Not that you can eat it, but
Purslane. Yeah, that's really frustrating. To be honest, I don't do much work with purslane, so I can't give you more specific
it's not,
removal.
I don't know
Yeah.
where it came from. We never had it before until the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think continuing to do putting the tarps down and a lot of persistence is the only way to go, unfortunately.
Like
But yeah.
edges where there is no tarp, it's just green.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Does anybody else have questions? Look at a picture of a purple. Sure, I'll have a look. I might not be able to ID it, but I'll try my best. Sure. Oh, thanks. And if anyone wants to look at Jeremiah, I'll bring him and put him on this table here. Okay.